They never teach you how to deal with it. They teach you to ignore it, bury it, pretend it's not there. But it is. It always was. That quiet tension in your chest when someone disrespects you. The fire behind your calm voice when you say, "It's fine," but it isn't. The thoughts you'd never say out loud. The instincts you learned to suppress so others would call you a good man. But strength was never about being good. It was about being in command. And no man can command what he refuses to confront. Your dark side isn't evil. It's primal. It's ancient. It's the part of you that remembers how to survive when the polite mask cracks. And the truth most men run from is this. If you don't make peace with that part of yourself, it will show up uninvited. In your relationships, in your addictions, in your silence, you'll start to notice that the calm you show the world is built on shaking ground. And you'll wonder why you always feel like something is watching you from within. That something is not your enemy, but it is your responsibility. And until you learn to sit with it, understand it, and lead it, you will never truly feel strong. Because true strength is not how much you can lift, how loud you can speak, or how many men fear your name. It's how little you're shaken when your world starts to burn. It's how silent you can become when everything inside you wants to explode. It's how deeply you understand the chaos inside you, and how firmly you refuse to let it rule you. This isn't just theory. Look around. Most men are breaking in silence, behind smiles, behind routines, behind their own self-improvement rituals. They're reading the right books, working out, waking up early. But they still don't feel free, still don't feel calm, because they never addressed what really runs the show. The part of them that's been caged, judged, rejected, and misunderstood. And now it leaks out in anger, in burnout, in cold withdrawal from the very people they want to protect. But there's another path, a quieter one. Not many speak of it, because few have walked it far enough to describe it clearly. It's not glamorous, it's not comfortable, but it is liberating. It begins when you stop being afraid of your own mind, when you stop reacting to every storm inside you as if it doesn't belong, when you stop pretending you're always calm, and instead, you become calm through force of presence, through control, through silence. The man who understands his darkness is not dangerous to others. He is dangerous only to illusion, to lies, to weakness, because he doesn't need approval, doesn't need permission, doesn't need noise to feel alive. He has faced what most people spend their lives avoiding, and now he walks lighter. Not because he has less weight, but because he learned to carry it. This is not a motivational video. This is a mirror. And if you're honest enough to look into it without flinching, you might just find the part of yourself you've been searching for all along. That unshakable presence, that fire without chaos, that silence that makes others feel your strength before you even speak. Don't just watch this video. Let it challenge you. Let it confront the part of you that still hides behind discipline without depth, behind anger without aim, behind strength without stillness. Because until you meet the part of you that you fear, you'll never become the man you're meant to be. And when you finally do, you'll stop fearing darkness altogether. Not because it went away, but because now it walks beside you, on your command. There's a myth that has infected the modern mind, quietly, almost politely, the myth of the good man, not the just man, not the strong man, but the man who bends, appeases, avoids confrontation, and calls it virtue. He's praised for being agreeable, for staying out of conflict, for keeping his darkness locked away so well that even he starts to forget it exists. Society smiles at him, says he's evolved, mature, balanced. But what no one says is that beneath his calm exterior lies a storm he's too ashamed to face. And with every year that passes, he becomes less a man and more a mask. The good man doesn't speak when disrespected. He tells himself it's better to walk away, that silence is strength. But it's not the silence of power. It's the silence of fear, of self-betrayal, of a man who has been taught that any flicker of anger is a sign of failure. So he swallows it, again and again, until one day his words carry no weight, not even to himself. He's forgotten how to say no with conviction, how to stand in a room and command it without raising his voice. He's safe, but he's invisible. And what's worse, he starts to resent the very traits he was forced to bury. He sees men who walk with presence, who speak with sharp precision, who carry an edge forged by suffering, and he envies them. Not for their power, but for their integration, because deep down, he knows they are not ruled by their shadow. They ride it. While he spends his life trying to cage his instincts, they've made peace with theirs. And that peace has made them terrifyingly calm. This is where the myth begins to collapse. Because no man becomes strong by being agreeable. No man earns respect by being nice. Respect isn't given for compliance. It's given for clarity, for restraint born from power, not from fear. The man who has the strength to crush, but chooses to hold back, that man earns reverence. Not because he hides his darkness, but because he mastered it. We've confused virtue with obedience, integrity with submission. We've raised generations of men to believe that self-control means self-denial, that to be in control, they must become tame, polished, predictable. But control is not the absence of fire. It's the ability to direct it. The man who never shows emotion is not more evolved. He's more fragile, because when the time comes to act, he hesitates. Not because he's wise, but because he's unsure if his instincts can be trusted. He's never tested them, never sharpened them, never allowed himself to become dangerous in the first place. To be strong, you must first be dangerous. Not reckless, not violent, dangerous, capable, intact. A man who has trained himself not just to think, but to feel without being consumed, to want without being enslaved, to burn without being burned. That's the difference. And it's the difference between a man who is merely good and a man who is whole. The good man seeks to be accepted. The strong man seeks to be aligned. One follows rules so others will love him. The other builds principles so he can respect himself. One asks for approval before speaking. The other measures his words, not by reaction, but by truth. And the moment you step onto this path, you begin to understand. What the world once called your dark side was never your enemy. It was your training ground. It was there to test you, shape you, prepare you for the kind of control that only comes through confrontation. You don't become powerful by rejecting your instincts. You become powerful by refining them, by walking into the part of you that you were taught to be ashamed of and asking, "Why are you here?" And when that voice answers, when you finally understand where your fury comes from, your pride, your lust, your need for control, you stop fearing it. Because now it's not a threat, it's a tool, one you forged by fire, and no one can take it from you because no one gave it to you. Forget being good. Aim to be whole. Because a man who is only good will break the moment life demands something more. But the man who has mastered both his peace and his rage, he becomes untouchable. He is not swayed by praise, not weakened by failure, not controlled by impulse. He does not need the world to understand him. He simply moves through it with eyes open, spine straight, and a mind sharpened by solitude. He is the one the world cannot tame, because he has already tamed himself. You were taught to aim for light, to be kind, to forgive, to think before you act. And those teachings have value if you understand what they were meant to tame. But what no one explained is that beneath every polite thought, every calm word, every restrained action, lives something deeper, something older, something wild. Carl Jung called it the shadow, not because it's evil, but because it hides. And what hides for too long doesn't disappear. It festers. You are not born empty. You are born complete. That means you are born with everything. Love, fear, compassion, violence, clarity, impulse, all of it. But over time, you're trained to divide yourself, to choose what's acceptable, to push the rest into the dark. And so, without realizing it, you start abandoning parts of yourself. The parts that are inconvenient, the parts that don't fit the image, the parts that feel too intense to carry in daylight, and the result isn't peace, it's fracture. Most men don't lose control because they're bad. They lose control because they're fragmented. They've spent so many years denying their shadow that it builds pressure in the silence. Then one day, a moment of stress, of disrespect, of rejection, cracks the surface. And the beast they thought was gone bursts out. Not refined, not trained, just raw, wild, unpredictable. And in those moments, they say things they regret, do things they swore they never would, not because they're evil, because they're unintegrated. The man who ignores his dark side doesn't escape it. He becomes ruled by it, not in loud, obvious ways, in subtle ones. Passive aggression, numbness, addictions masked as habits, sudden bursts of anger that vanish as quickly as they appear. He doesn't understand where it's coming from. But it's not coming from nowhere. It's the shadow, knocking, asking to be seen. But this is where everything changes. When you stop running, when you stop fearing your intensity, when you finally sit with the parts of yourself you've always tried to avoid, you begin to understand. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to protect you. Crude, unpolished, but loyal. It remembers every time you were disrespected, every time you were humiliated, every moment you felt powerless and had to pretend you were fine. It kept those memories. It built armor around them, not to hurt others, but to stop you from being hurt again. That's why repression doesn't work. You don't get rid of the pain by forgetting. You heal it by confronting. You face your rage and listen. You face your envy and study it. You face your hunger for control and ask what wound it's covering. That's the work. And it's not poetic. It's not something you can hashtag. It's brutal. It's slow. It's lonely. But on the other side is power. The kind that doesn't scream, doesn't chase, doesn't dominate. It simply is. Jung didn't say become the beast. He said be aware of it. Because awareness is the first gate to mastery. When you know your darkness, you no longer fear it. When you understand where it lives in you, how it moves, how it speaks, you can lead it, guide it, and if needed, release it in precise, conscious ways. Like fire controlled in a forge. No longer wildfire. Now, heat with direction. Energy with aim. A man who knows his shadow doesn't need to prove himself. He doesn't need to intimidate. He doesn't even need to speak much. Because the real weight he carries isn't in his arms or his reputation, it's in his self-knowledge. He has walked through his own hell and returned, not as a saint, but as a sovereign. One who rules not others, but himself. You will always have darkness in you. Always. The question is, will you let it leak out in confusion, or will you harness it with clarity? One path ends in regret. The other ends in reverence. Because there is something sacred about a man who has touched his chaos and still chosen calm. He is not pretending. He is not performing. He is choosing. And that kind of choice can only be made by someone who knows what the alternative looks like. This is not a journey you finish. This is a relationship you build. With the mirror, with your patterns, with the voice that says, "You're not enough," and the one that says, "Burn it all down." You learn to hear them both, and then you do neither. You just stay still. You observe. And in that stillness, you become dangerous. Not to others, to lies, to fear, to weakness. Because you are no longer confused about who you are. You are a beast, but you are no longer ruled by instinct. You are now ruled by awareness. There is a war every man must fight, but it's not out there, not in the world, not in your job, your rivals, or the opinions others hold about you. The real war is inside. The battle between what you feel and what you do, between what you want and what you know will break you. This battle has no finish line, no audience, no applause. And that's what makes it the most important war of all. Because how you fight within is how you show up in the world. Lose in here, and you'll lose out there, no matter how polished you seem. You've seen it. The man who looks composed but flinches at confrontation. The man who gives orders but can't handle rejection. The man who dominates in business but collapses in silence when left alone with his own mind. These are not weak men. These are men who never went inward, who built walls around their psyche hoping strength would grow in isolation. But inner strength doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in pressure, in honesty, in facing your own contradictions and refusing to lie about them any longer. You must stop seeing discomfort as failure. It is signal. It is proof that you've reached the boundary between what is controlled and what still controls you. That feeling, the urge to escape, to distract, to shift blame, that is the front line of the inner war. And you win not by fighting back harder, but by staying. By sitting with the chaos and saying, I'm not afraid to see what lives here. That's where most turn away. That's where your edge is born. The man who doesn't fight inside ends up fighting everywhere else. He argues needlessly, competes endlessly, reacts impulsively, because everything unresolved in him spills into the world. He starts fires just to feel in control. And when people pull away, when outcomes slip from his grip, he blames the world, never realizing that his real opponent was always in the mirror. But there's another type of man, one who still feels the rage, the lust, the urge to dominate, but doesn't act on them blindly. Not because he's suppressing them, but because he's studied them, lived with them, dissected them under the sharp knife of self-inquiry. He knows where his darkness comes from, and because he knows, he's not afraid of it. In fact, he's grateful for it, because it keeps him alert, it keeps him real. This is not the path of the saint, it's the path of the sovereign, the man who has learned not to fear his hunger, but to feed it with discipline, not to fear his anger, but to wield it with honor. He doesn't collapse into guilt when his shadow rises. He breathes, he watches, and he redirects. And when he finally speaks or acts, it comes not from chaos, but from clarity. That's what makes him formidable. He is not reactive. He is deliberate. He doesn't need to dominate the room because he already commands himself. There's a reason monks train like warriors, a reason soldiers meditate before battle, because the more powerful the man becomes, the more dangerous it is when he acts without awareness. And awareness only grows when you enter the battlefield within, when you stop making excuses, when you stop outsourcing your peace to circumstances, when you stop waiting for life to calm down so you can finally breathe. You learn to breathe in the middle of the storm. That's how peace is earned, not found. You will never escape your inner battles, but you can outgrow the illusion that they are problems. They're not. They're invitations to sharpen, to evolve, to become dangerous in the right way, to stop chasing the fantasy of total calm and instead build a mind that thrives in chaos without being consumed by it. That's real strength. The kind that doesn't break under pressure because it was forged in pressure. So the question isn't whether you're at war. You are. The question is whether you're fighting like a coward, hiding behind distractions, behind mood swings, behind the image of strength, or like a warrior, present, quiet, brutal in your honesty with yourself, ruthless in your standards, patient in your process. That kind of man doesn't look for escape. He looks for mastery. The moment you start fighting that inner war with presence, everything outside begins to change. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become immovable. You stop fearing what people think. You stop seeking validation. You stop needing to be right or liked or followed. You walk into rooms knowing that the real battle has already been fought and won, in the silence no one saw. You don't control the storm by shouting at it. You don't overcome your instincts by denying they exist. And you don't master your dark side by pretending you've evolved past it. You chain the beast through discipline, through structure, through self-imposed limits that don't shrink your power. They give it direction. Discipline is not suppression. It's sovereignty, and until you understand that, your strength will remain scattered, and your mind will remain at the mercy of impulse. Every man wants to feel in control, but most men confuse control with permission. They think that being disciplined means being deprived. That order is weakness. That routine is a cage, but the truth is harsher. Without routine, you will be ruled by chaos. You'll call it freedom, but it's addiction. You'll say you're choosing, but you're reacting. And worst of all, you won't know the difference. Because the absence of structure feels liberating at first, until it robs you of your edge. Discipline is not about waking up early or following rules blindly. It's about removing negotiation from the things that make you stronger. It's about building a rhythm so sharp that even when your emotions rebel, your actions stay the course. Because there will be days when the beast in you wants to burn bridges, skip training, break silence, chase comfort. And if you haven't built a system strong enough to hold yourself together in those moments, then your strength is conditional, temporary, fake. You can tell how disciplined a man is by how he behaves when no one is watching, when nothing is at stake, when there's no scoreboard, no spotlight, no threat of failure. In those quiet moments, the undisciplined man collapses. He scrolls, he indulges, he lies to himself about needing rest when what he truly lacks is structure. But the disciplined man, he doesn't need permission to stay the path. He made a vow to himself long before anyone expected anything from him. And that vow is his anchor. This is how you chain the beast. Not by removing your intensity, but by giving it rules, by channeling it into motion. By waking up every day and proving to yourself that your emotions don't make your decisions, your values do. This kind of discipline builds something rare, self-trust. You stop second-guessing. You stop explaining. You stop needing applause to stay consistent. You become your own witness, your own standard. And that is a terrifying thing to the world, because it cannot move a man who has already decided who he is. Think of a blade. Raw metal is useless until it's shaped. Fire alone doesn't purify. It consumes. It's the containment of fire that gives it purpose. That's discipline. It's the forge. And the man who refuses to enter it will never sharpen. He'll stay soft, reactive, and endlessly confused about why nothing in his life holds its form. Because nothing will until he does. You don't need to be harsh with yourself. You need to be consistent. You don't need to punish your flaws. You need to outlast them. You need to design a system that keeps you in motion when your mind tells you to stop. And that system must be built on identity, not mood. Who are you when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you feel like breaking? If your answer is different than who you are at your best, then your beast is still loose. And discipline is the chain that reminds it who leads. No one will hand you this control. No one will reward you for building it. In fact, most people will try to pull you away from it. They'll call you obsessive, cold, detached. That's because they've never felt what it's like to be owned by their impulses, and then to finally break free. But you have. You've seen the cost of chaos. You've felt the weight of wasted potential, and that memory should become your reason. So build your routine. Guard your rituals, make them sacred, eat the same meals, train at the same hours, reflect at the same time every night. Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're tired of being a slave to what's convenient. Because you're ready to stop losing to yourself in the smallest battles that compound into silent defeat. Because you want the kind of power that doesn't scream or boast, but just is. Discipline is not the death of your fire. It is the harness, the reins, the command. It is the reason the world begins to respect you without knowing why. Because the man who leads himself, consistently, quietly, and without apology, doesn't need to prove his strength. He becomes it. Rage doesn't destroy you. Misplaced rage does. Buried rage, rage denied. That's what burns your relationships, weakens your voice, and poisons your calm. You were never meant to be emotionless. You were meant to be precise, and precision begins when you stop fearing your fire and start controlling its burn. Not all flames are dangerous. Some of them forge steel. Some of them light the path forward. The difference is not the heat, it's the man holding the match. Anger is one of the most misunderstood forces a man can carry. You're told it's toxic, that to feel it is to fail, that if you're truly strong, you'll stay calm, quiet, indifferent. But that's not calm. That's suppression. That's pressure building in silence, until it explodes in moments you didn't expect, in words you can't take back, in actions that don't even feel like yours. And then you ask yourself, what just happened? But the answer was always there. You didn't lose control in that moment. You lost it years ago when you started pretending your fire didn't exist. Controlled fire is focus. It's clarity. It's energy condensed into direction. But uncontrolled fire, that's where regret lives. That's when the voice inside you gets louder than your values. That's when the beast you've been avoiding decides it's had enough of your silence. And it acts, not with wisdom, not with strength, but with pain. Because that's what unprocessed rage is. A signal that something inside you still hurts, still fears, still believes it needs to destroy to feel safe. You don't become stronger by extinguishing your fire. You become stronger by choosing when, where, and how it burns. By learning to sit with the heat instead of flinching. By breathing through the urge instead of obeying it. By realizing that the more power you carry, the more dangerous your reactions become. Not just to others, but to your future. That's why this path requires more than self-awareness. It requires self-command. Real men do not explode. They direct. They don't scream. They calculate. Their fury doesn't come out in chaos. It becomes discipline, protection, intensity. They learn to use the burn, to push through doubt, to keep training when exhausted, to speak with edge but not ego. And that kind of fire doesn't scare people. It makes them trust you. Because they know you've seen your darkness and you've chosen not to feed it, but to forge with it. You felt this. In those moments when someone crossed a line and you held your silence like a sword. Not because you were scared, but because you were sharp. Because you had measured the situation, not reacted to it. And in that silence, you didn't feel powerless. You felt sovereign. That's the mark of a man who owns his fire. His decisions are not dictated by mood or emotion. They're anchored in value, purpose, strength. If you don't learn this control, your fire will burn indiscriminately. It will scorch the people you love, the opportunities you've worked for, and the peace you've been trying to build. But if you do learn it, if you train yourself to pause, to think, to breathe, while everything inside you screams for action, then you will carry a power that few men ever touch. A presence that is both calm and intense, warm and terrifying, trusted and respected, because people can feel it. They can sense when a man has faced his fire and survived, when he no longer runs from it and no longer lets it run his life. That man doesn't just move through the world. He changes the temperature of every room he enters, not by volume, but by presence. You don't need to fear your emotions. You need to lead them. Anger, jealousy, pride. These are not your enemies. They are signals, tools, forces. And when guided by reason, when tempered by discipline, they become fuel for greatness. That's why the strongest men you know are not the coldest. They are the most alive, They feel everything. And still, they choose wisely. Your fire is not a curse. It is a gift. It's what keeps you awake when others quit. It's what gives your words weight, your steps purpose. But only if you own it. Only if you stop pretending you don't burn and start learning how to carry that flame without letting it consume you. Because in the end, the world doesn't need more numb men. It needs men who burn, but never lose themselves in the fire. Silence is not emptiness. It's a weapon, a shield, a test of how much of yourself you truly own. The world pushes you to react, to defend, to explain, to prove you're right. But the moment you take the bait, you've already lost, because power doesn't react. It waits, it watches, it speaks last. And when it speaks, it doesn't ask for attention. It commands it. You've been told that silence makes you weak, that people will walk over you if you don't respond, that if you don't correct the lie, it becomes truth. But this is the trap. The need to answer everything, to respond instantly, to have the last word. That's not strength. That's insecurity dressed as authority. Real authority isn't loud. It's not impulsive. It doesn't panic when misunderstood, because it doesn't depend on perception. It's built from within. The man who speaks last does so because he no longer needs the world to confirm his position. He is not controlled by the pull of provocation. He doesn't rush to fix how others see him. He waits, not passively, strategically. He gives space for the noise to reveal itself. And in that space, everything becomes clear. Who is speaking from emotion? Who is hiding fear in volume? Who has control? And who is pretending? This kind of presence can't be faked. It's earned. Through discipline, through emotional training, through moments where you almost spoke, almost reacted, but chose stillness instead. Not because you were afraid, but because you knew the truth didn't need defending. Because you understood that sometimes the most devastating move is no move at all. In every argument, every confrontation, every test, there is a moment when silence has more weight than words. But most men never find it. They fill the space with explanations, with justifications, with attempts to look composed while inside they're unraveling. But the man who has mastered himself speaks with no urgency, no hunger for validation, no desire to be liked. He speaks only when it's time, and only what is needed. There's a kind of silence that feels weak, the silence of fear, of not knowing what to say. That's not what this is. This is chosen silence, controlled, measured. It's the silence that shifts rooms, that makes others lean in, that signals a man who doesn't need to dominate the room because he already dominates himself. And once you learn this silence, your presence will begin to speak louder than your voice ever could. It's not that you never speak. It's that your speech becomes rare, refined, respected. Because people begin to understand, when you talk, it matters. You're not filling time. You're delivering precision, insight, clarity, and that kind of communication can't come from a reactive mind. It comes only from a mind that's learned to wait, to observe, to stay still under pressure and choose action only when it serves something greater than ego. The man who speaks last wins because he's not fighting for control, he already has it. He's not trying to win the moment. He's playing the long game. He doesn't interrupt, doesn't outshout, doesn't flinch. His calm is not an act. It's built, earned in hours of reflection, failure, and the sharp pain of learning when to shut his mouth and listen, especially to himself. Because silence isn't just something you give others, it's something you give yourself. The space to hear what you actually think, what you actually feel. And when you learn to stay in that space, you stop being pulled in every direction by words that were never meant for you in the first place. Most chaos begins with a reaction, a single sentence said too soon, a defense made from fear. But the man who trains himself to pause gains the power to choose his battlefield. He no longer fights every war. He picks the one that matters, and when he steps in, the room feels it. So speak when it's time, not when it's tempting. Let the world throw its noise at you and remain unmoved, because the one who remains still while others shake becomes the one everyone watches, not out of fear, but out of respect, out of curiosity, out of something deeper than charisma, presence. The world is loud. Let it be. And when the silence finally comes, make sure your voice is the one they remember. Not because you shouted, but because you waited. There was a time when men were forged, not by comfort, not by theory, but by trials, rituals, hard things that stripped away illusion and replaced it with clarity. You knew who you were because life didn't let you forget. You were tested, expected to carry weight, and through those weights, you found your form. But that world is gone, and what's left is a generation of men searching for meaning in mirrors that no longer reflect them. Most men today are not weak because they lack potential. They are weak because no one showed them what to do with it. No one initiated them. No one demanded their discipline. No one held them at the edge of their pain and told them, "Stay here, learn this, don't run." Instead, we replaced the fire with comfort. We replaced structure with suggestion. We replaced truth with noise. And in that confusion, masculinity wasn't destroyed. It was fractured. The modern man is told to be soft but strong, assertive but agreeable, present but detached, vulnerable but stoic. He is flooded with contradictions and punished for choosing wrong. So he adapts, he shrinks, he creates a version of himself he thinks will be accepted, not respected, accepted. And that's where the disintegration begins. Because every time he betrays what he knows to be true just to fit in, he loses something deeper than approval. He loses himself. Without initiation, boys become men in age, but not in identity. They reach for purpose without ever knowing the cost of it. They chase pleasure and call it freedom. They avoid struggle and call it peace. But deep down, something in them knows the truth. They were made for more than comfort. They were made to carry weight. And when they don't, the body may relax, but the soul begins to rot. So they invent chaos, not consciously, but behaviorally. Sabotage becomes a form of stimulation. They pick fights in relationships. They chase the high of impulsive decisions. They procrastinate on the very goals they say they want, not because they're lazy, but because their internal fire has no structure. It burns them instead of forging them, and no one around them knows how to fix it, because everyone's pretending they're fine. But they're not fine. They're anxious, addicted, numb, and they don't know why. They go to war with themselves over thoughts they can't explain, over urges that seem to appear from nowhere, over shame that sticks even when they do everything right. This is not a personal failure. This is the absence of guidance, of pressure with purpose, of mentors who demand more than performance. They demand integrity. You cannot heal masculinity by demonizing it. You cannot soften your way into strength. There must be structure. There must be fire. There must be honest confrontation with the parts of you that weren't meant to be ignored. The anger, the pride, the hunger. They don't need to be erased. They need to be refined. That's what the old paths knew. That's what rite of passage was for, not to hurt you, to show you what you're made of. You don't need to be initiated by a tribe. You can initiate yourself, but it won't be easy. You'll have to become your own standard. You'll have to create your own rituals. Mornings that test your discipline, nights that demand reflection, boundaries that shape your time, your energy, your circle. You'll have to stop waiting for someone to give you permission and start moving like the man you would follow. Because that's what's missing. Not praise, not success, not comfort. What's missing is the man you can look in the mirror and respect, not for his accomplishments, but for his discipline, his edge, his restraint, his ability to carry pressure without losing himself. That man doesn't come from theory. He comes from friction, and you must create it on purpose. This is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming integrated. A man who no longer rejects parts of himself because the world told him to. A man who walks into every room with quiet weight because he no longer doubts what he's carrying. That's what the world needs. Not louder men, not softer men, whole men. And you become whole not by addition, but by reclamation. By going back to the parts of you that were exiled. By bringing them home. By learning to lead them, not suppress them. That's what strength feels like. Not pressure from outside, but power from within. And once you find it, you stop chasing identity. You start embodying it. There will never be a day when the battle ends. The chaos will not retire. The world will not become quieter, so you can finally find peace. The distractions will only get louder, the temptations sharper, the reasons to give in, to delay, to surrender. They will multiply. But none of that matters if you have learned to guard the one place no one else can reach, your mind. This is where everything either sharpens or breaks. Not your body, not your image, but your thoughts, your attention, your awareness. You can lift weights, build discipline, create wealth, develop presence. But if your inner world is unguarded, every victory will eventually turn hollow, because your strength will be reactive, not rooted. You'll win for a season but fall the moment something shakes your certainty. And life always does. You must become the guardian, not the prisoner, not the observer, the guardian. Which means you watch what enters, you question what lingers, you clear what clutters, every day, without exception. Because without vigilance, the noise of the world becomes your inner voice. And that voice does not care about your growth. It cares about your comfort, your safety, your survival at the lowest setting. But you were not built to survive on standby. You were built to command. A man who guards his mind is not harder to reach. He is harder to manipulate. He's not distant. He's discerning. He doesn't jump at every offer, every invitation, every provocation. Because he understands the cost of distraction. He knows that every ounce of attention has value. Every moment of clarity must be earned. And so he treats his awareness like a sacred resource, not to be thrown away on arguments, noise, or thoughts that drag him into darkness. This kind of inner command requires more than meditation and breath work. It requires standards, a code, a personal law about what you consume, what you tolerate, what you repeat, because repetition is the architect of belief. What you allow to echo inside your mind eventually becomes your internal reality. And most men never audit that reality. They just absorb. And that absorption becomes the quiet erosion of their strength. To guard your mind, you must also know it. You must study your patterns. Watch where your attention goes when you're tired. What habits you return to when you're triggered. What thoughts loop when you're unsure of yourself. And instead of escaping those patterns with distraction, you face them with attention. You interrupt them with truth. You anchor yourself not in comfort, but in clarity. Guarding your mind doesn't mean building walls. It means choosing your gates. You decide what enters, what influences, what gets repeated. You curate your inputs with the same precision you would use to protect your home, your family, your mission. Because your mind is the source of all three. And if it crumbles, everything connected to it follows. This is why so many men lose themselves after success. They built the body, built the brand, built the external empire. But inside, their minds were untrained. So when the pressure rose, when the attacks came, when the applause faded, they collapsed. Not because they were weak, but because their strength was unguarded. It belonged to their image, not their essence. But there is another way, the way of the sentinel, the quiet watchman, the man who rises every day and sharpens his thinking before he sharpens his blade, who cleans his inner world before he speaks to the outer one, who knows that mental chaos is not fixed by achievement, but by awareness, by a code that is not shaken by feeling, not rewritten by failure, not negotiated with doubt. This man walks slowly, speaks less, acts with precision, because his decisions are not reactions. They are choices made in stillness, not emotional stillness, disciplined stillness, earned through 1,000 moments of resistance to what felt urgent but was not important. You become the guardian of your mind when you stop waiting to feel ready, when you stop trying to win the war in one day, when you start showing up every morning with the same quiet promise: I will protect this space. I will not betray myself with small thinking. I will not outsource my thoughts to trends, to critics, to fear. I will stand watch, because everything I build depends on it. And when that becomes who you are, the world will feel it. Not because you say it, but because nothing shakes you, not storms, not praise, not failure, because you are no longer reacting to life. You are leading it, and only a man who guards his mind becomes truly unbreakable. You've heard the noise, you've seen the contradictions. Be soft, but hard. Be open, but never too much. Be strong, but don't show it. And in the middle of it all, no one tells you the truth, that every man must face himself, not once, not as a metaphor, but fully, repeatedly, brutally. And if you don't, the world will do it for you, through failure, through loss, through the quiet realization that your power was never in the mask, it was in the mirror you avoided. Mastering your dark side is not a final destination. It's a discipline, a presence you return to every day. It's in the way you wake up and move with intention, the way you say no when the world wants yes, the way you speak with silence before using words. It's in how you lead your instincts, not erase them. How you walk into conflict without losing your center. How you remember, even in chaos, that your control was never out there. It was always in you. But that kind of mastery isn't gifted. It's earned. In private moments of doubt, in lonely nights where you're tempted to run, in every breath you take between reaction and response. And that's what most men will never understand. They'll keep chasing shortcuts, keep hiding behind identity labels and philosophies they never lived. Keep trying to fix the outer world without first fixing the terrain of their own mind. Let them. Because you've seen the other path now. The harder one, the quieter one. The one where your fire isn't a threat, but a forge. Where your silence isn't passive, it's powerful. Where your rage becomes a sharpened edge, not a broken cage. Where your pain no longer defines you, it refines you. And the longer you walk this path, the more you'll start to see the shift. You won't need to speak as much. People will feel your presence before your words. You won't need to argue as much. You'll begin to see that the man who knows himself never has to convince anyone else. And when people misunderstand you, criticize you, try to provoke you, you'll stay still. Not because you don't care, but because you've already chosen what deserves your energy. And most of it doesn't. You won't be perfect. That was never the goal. But you will be precise. With your time. With your words. With your emotions. With your mission. You'll stop scattering your energy trying to be everything, and start anchoring yourself in what cannot be taken, your inner clarity, your unshakable code, your earned silence. That is what it means to be strong, not louder, not colder, not angrier, just unmoved by anything that doesn't align with the man you are becoming. And that man? He's not made by books, followers, or systems. He's made by choice. The choice to face what's uncomfortable. The choice to sharpen what's messy. The choice to keep showing up, not as a perfect version, but as a present one, fully aware, fully awake, fully dangerous in the right direction. So remember this, your dark side was never the problem. Your fear of it was. Now that you've faced it, use it, and walk like the man who doesn't just carry weight, he chooses it. If this message brought clarity to your path, subscribe. and leave a comment with the line that struck deepest. "You're not walking this alone.